So I don't know. It's like,
Okay,
I don't
guys.
know if it's permanent. I don't know what it is.
No, I think she's gonna start. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's.
Yeah, this is Sarah. Sarah used to do classes for me actually when I first got married.
Hi.
A group of women. I remember. Yeah. I used to be
You
there.
remember?
Yeah. Val brought her out
Very
from.
pretty.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So enjoy. Hope
It's
it's
the
good.
wing.
Hope it's good. She just got a new one.
Melissa.
Now it's your smile.
Oh, thank you. Melissa was asking me to speak about, we're like discussing different subjects and we decided to go for Shalom Bayis. And at first I was like, oh my goodness, Shalom Bayis, everyone feels like we already heard everything. And Baruch Hashem, some of us have good Shalom Bayis, so we're like, what's the need even to talk about it? But there's always a need to talk about it because marriage is one of the most unstable relationships. I heard a psychologist yesterday and I thought it was so much in point. He said that every time a husband and wife get separated, even for a few hours, you have to renew the relationship. Every time. Everything has to be restarted from fresh. And he was saying and it's true. I was thinking about what we say in the Tefillah. In the Tefillah, we say Marabu Ma'asecha Hashem, and we have a whole text. And we say that Hashem is Mechadesh. Kol Yom, every day Hashem renews the world. Like every instant, Hashem is renewing the world. And you could think, why Hashem is powerful? He created this whole, universe. Why does he need to renew the world every minute? It's because he wants to remind us that when you create something, you need to work on it. There's nothing, I'm married and everything is beautiful. And that's why in Hollywood movies, you always have all the search, and finally they find each other, and then they fight, and then they make up, and then by the end of the movie they get married, but you don't see the rest of the movie. It always stops, if you notice, all the big love stories, they always stop at the marriage, like when they get married. And then what happens after? How do you keep the flame alive? How do you stay, with each other? And you need to be committed. How do you keep that alive? Because it's so challenging, and, in the world that we live in, there's so many distractions. How do you keep your marriage something very special, very unique, and that you keep working on it every day? So interestingly, when you look at a marriage in the Torah, how do we get married? There's 2 steps to get married. There's what we call the Kiddushin and what we call the Nisuin. What does it mean? Kiddushin and Nisuin, look, if you go to a chuppah, I'm sure it's the summer, you're going to be, you're going to be, Be'ezrat Hashem,
There's 2 spots.
I have opportunities to go to a lot of chuppah, you'll see that. There's 2 steps. There's the step of putting the ring on the person, and then we read the ketubah and we bind the people together under the chuppah. The first step, once you get the ring on, it's called, that's first step, it's called the kiddushin. We do the kiddush on it, right? And it means that at that moment, it's engaged. The person is engaged, the person is ready to be married. If chas v'shalom anything happened, there is a yeridat adama, an earthquake at that moment, the couple is married. If they want to separate, they have to have a get. They are married at that moment, just at that moment when they give it. And only then, we do the ceremony of the wedding, all the brachot, the sheva brachot, all the singing and everything else. Why? Because the first step when you want to get married or when you are married, it's the commitment. First you commit to it, then let's have all the ceremony, let's have all the dancing, let's have all the music and the songs and the blessing. That starts with this. And it's very interesting because in the Talmud, in the Gemara, how do we learn all the halachot, all the laws of marriage? We learn from a story that you all know, of Abraham Avinu and Sarah Imenu. When Abraham had to bury his wife because she just died, when Sarah died, what did he do? He went to Hebron and he tried to buy Ma'arat HaMachpelah. And he bought it from this guy's name was Ephron. And they started arguing. And we wonder, what was the arguing about? In one way, this field was empty, was ugly. There was nothing in that field. And Ephron started asking for 400 gold coins. It was a huge sum at that moment. So they were asking, why does he want so much money? He wanted something just to make Abraham, basically to make just the price go up. He never dreamed that Abraham would pay that much. But Abraham really wanted that corner because he knew that was a very holy corner. Adam Arishon and Chava were buried there. So he really wanted it. So they both started fighting on the price. Finally, they agreed on $400. Ephron left. He was super happy. And Abraham was also extremely happy because he had the field that he wanted. And the whole fight was about the length of time that he wanted to sell it for. Ephron, he was used to sell short term, like a lease, I give you my field, you pay me 3 months, 3 years, and then you give it back to me. But Abraham wanted something eternal, something that stays forever. So you're going to tell me, okay, what's the point with marriage? And why do we learn marriage from someone who just died? There's no more marriage at that moment. He is without his wife. Where is the marriage there? But the lesson is really deep and profound. First step is what? Defining about what? Something, because one wants temporary, the other one wants eternal. When you get married, it's for eternity. You don't get married and at the first problem, it's okay, I give up, let's divorce. How many times, unfortunately, in the world that we live in, we throw the word divorce, separation so easily. Maybe Baruch Hashem, maybe not here, but everyone, when they fight, that's the first thing. It becomes easy to do that. How many people we know?
I mean,
so many people.
Point that you can fight and argue, but you said this.
That word is really big. But how many couples today divorce? How many, even in the religious world, even in the Jewish world, how many, do you know, like the percentage of divorces?
A lot. 50.
It's about 40% right now.
Wow.
About. It's a lot. And people, sometimes they even regret after the divorce. Or they believe that they will remarry and have a better marriage. And then the same mistakes that happen in the first, they come in the second because they didn't deal with the issue. What I mean is that we live in a disposable generation. Everything is disposable, right? Paper plates, not on purpose, but everything, right? Even people are disposable because we used to have everything we want right away, right? We have a phone, Google, you want any question? Boom, talk to Google in 2 seconds. You have, back in my days, and I'm not that old, but back in my days, we used to go, you had to have information, we used to go to the library. I remember back in France, I was very quiet and you had to go to buy this like a huge encyclopedia and find the right volume because it was the right subject that you were looking for. It took forever to get something. Today you speak to your phone, you have the information. So we're used to get things fast. When you're in a relationship and the husband doesn't give you what you want fast, then you lose, right away you lose interest and you start fighting. Why? Because people marry for the wrong reason. And I'll explain that. Rabbi Twersky was bringing the Rebbe, of course. I'm sure you've heard that story 1,000 times. He said once to someone who was eating fish, said, so tell me, you love fish? He says, I love fish. He said, it's impossible. If you love fish, you don't eat the fish. Right? You don't eat the fish if you love the fish. What do you love? You love the taste of the fish. You love what the fish makes you feel and how it tastes or whatever, but you don't love the fish. And sometimes how many people that meet someone, they're like, oh, I love him so much, but what do you love about him? Do you love how he makes you feel? Do you love what he says to you? Do you love what he gives to you? So the day you don't get, if that's the relationship that is just external, the day you don't get what you want, the day you don't hear what you want, then you lose interest. And that's why we find people, I have a friend, she divorced, she didn't love him anymore. Wasn't abusive, nothing. Just you didn't love him anymore. Yes, בדיוק. Is that when there is something. So that's what we learned, the lessons from Abraham. Why? Because Abraham was like, this is eternal. I'm getting married and it's forever. Why? Because the Zohar explains, the Kabbalah explains, why we get married with someone. Because we have the same neshama. So the neshama is full before we both are born. Once we are born, the neshama separates in each of the bodies. Then we get married under the chuppah, the neshama comes back together. And Avraham Avinu was saying, even when she dies, we are still connected by the soul. That doesn't change. So that's why for Avraham we learn the lesson. Hello. That's why we learned from Avraham the lesson of marriage, even when his wife was there, to tell us this is a story of neshama, of souls. It doesn't matter if physically she's not here anymore. We are still connected. Now, the second lesson is what? How did Ephron and Abraham leave the deal? Everyone felt they were winners. And that's how we should look at a marriage. When we get married, we should feel, I have a winner. This is the husband I chose. I won. It's the best. And he should feel the same way with his wife. We should live in a marriage to cultivate that we have the best deal. How do you do that? Remember why you fell in love. So many times, people, they get married and they start, with the routine and kids come in and they're financial, maybe difficulties and this and that. And before you know it, you're just living with your roommate. It's not a husband anymore. You're together, you're living in the same house, but what connects you? So that's what Abraham wanted to teach us. It's you need to always feel you get the best deal. And how you do that? You work on your appreciation. When you work on noticing every little thing and saying thank you, then you feel that you actually won the lottery because that husband is the best. I remember I was once to like someone's like was talking about her husband who passed away, and you know what she was talking about? That every morning he would take a car, go to the gas station, and make sure she had a full tank of gas. And you're gonna say, "Whoa, but that's special because that's how she felt, you know, taken care of. That's how she felt protected. That's how she felt loved. That he was actually making sure she wouldn't, you know, be like stranded without gas." So this is one thing, and she was able to see the beauty of this at the moment because marriage, and that's the other idea, it's in the moment. Don't live for before, don't live for after, live for now. What happens now? Too many people, they live in like either in the past, like if you fight with your husband, you're going to tell him what he did to you 10 years ago when he left you at that wedding and that. Or you're going to say, what you want, what you wish. You're always or in the past or in the future. It's very difficult to actually stop and stay in the present. Live for the moment. What's happening? And now we started the class by saying that marriage is the most unstable relationship. Because of that, during the day, make sure you connect with your husband. I remember a rabbi told me that, and I thought it was so to the point. Let's say you have a jacuzzi, and you want to enjoy the jacuzzi when you come home from work. What do you need to do? Warm it up. It takes time. It takes about 25 minutes to an hour, depending on your jacuzzi, to warm up. If you don't do the warm up, the jacuzzi will be cold. You want to have a warm relationship with your husband. You want him to come home at the end of the day, and you want to feel love. Yes? Work during the day. Send him some text. Make sure that you call each other during the day, during his break. Make sure you send him like some nice messages. Do something special during the day so you warm it up. So when the husband comes home, your jacuzzi is already hot. You already want like, you don't have to restart the relationship as he walks in the house. That's the moment that he needs to unwind. That's the moment that also like you are with the kid, you just want to throw the kids at him. If you have kids at that moment, you just want, it's not the right moment. You need a few moments. Like you go to the pool, right? Even if it's hot outside, the pool will seem cold. You need some like, you know, some like a couple minutes to go, put some water on your knees, like, and, you know, get like back to, so when you see your husband, it's the same idea. He comes home, it always takes a few minutes to actually reconnect. But if you work during the day to send him a text, to talk to him, to do something, then when he comes home, the connection is already there. It's already easier to connect faster. So that was like the lesson that we learned from Avraham Avinu. Now that we realize that we're two entities, and all we do when we get married is go back together, so then we understand that it's unconditional love. Because let's compare a different type of love. Sisters to sisters, brother and sister, parents and children. What makes it so special is that we are born with that relationship. When I give birth to my baby, I'm already connected to it. I don't have to do anything. The baby is connected to me. And we feel so much love for the baby. But is the baby giving me anything? No. I give the baby everything. I feed the baby, I change the baby, I put him to sleep, I take care of the baby, I take him to the doctor, I make sure he gets vaccinated, whatever I have to do, I give everything to the baby. But the biggest, the most love that we feel is for our babies, for our children. Why? The idea is very simple. It's because in Ahava, in Hebrew, the root, the shoresh is hav, which means to give. Ahava means I give. Because love is not just a feeling, love is an action. Love is acting upon it, is doing things for the other, is giving. The more I give to someone, the more I love the person. It's not the more I receive and the more I love. No, that doesn't work that way. The more I give, the more I love. So the more I work on that relationship, on that giving, and the more I will feel love towards my husband. And that's the complete opposite of what we live in this world. In today's world, everything we do, you have to ask yourself, that's what we teach you, what's in it for me, right? It's like, why would I do that? What do I get? What do I get? What do you give me? Why would I do this? It's like I was talking to my husband yesterday. He was shocked because he needed someone to help him with a forklift in his warehouse. And his neighbor is Israeli, but the guy is like on top of like maybe 300 employees, okay? And my husband called him and said, do you mind if I borrow your forklift and I'll hire someone to drive it? It's like, Ma pitom, I'll come to you, I'll help you, I'll do it for you. My husband was like, but it's okay, you know, I don't want to bother you. Say, why, you're another Jew? I'll do it for you, I'll come, I'll give it to you. Sometimes people, they give to you and they're just nice, right? They don't ask, okay, what do I get, Chazara? Like, what do I get back? What do you give me back? When you're in a marriage and you say, okay, I'm going to do that for my husband, but he has to give something to me. And you're always expecting, you always be disappointed. Don't expect. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have a long-term goal. Of course, it should be a balance, right? If you always give, there will be resentment. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that you always have to be in a state of mind that when you give for the sake of giving. Not because you're waiting for your husband to give back the same thing to you. It's not going to work. Sometimes you will give more. Sometimes you will give more. And that's okay. That's the way it's supposed to be. That's what the Torah tells us. The Torah tells us that when you have a relationship, you have to always approach it with empathy. What does it mean, empathy? Put yourself in the other person's shoes. Sometimes we judge the other person and we're stuck on this. Sometimes we see, let's say, our husband does something that bothers us. Whatever he will do, even if it's not that, we'll see him as something like mean towards us. Whatever he'll do, I'll give you an example. This woman, she was really upset. It's a true story in Yerushalayim. She was really upset at her husband because every Shabbat, he would bring her 30 guests. But every Shabbat, mamash, 30. She was exhausted. She wanted to kill him. She's like, he doesn't think about me. Like, I'm tired. He doesn't think about like taking care of me. He doesn't want to spend time alone with me. Why does he always need guests? And she was like going crazy and they were having so much fight. But she didn't know how to express that it was too much for her. So at one point they were about to divorce. They went to see this rabbi and he said, what's the problem? And she said, I can't take it anymore. So he turned to him and said, why do you bring so many guests to your wife? He said, look, I come from a home when my parents, they had 100 guests. Like anyone who wants, they would walk in Shabbat. So to me, 30 guests is nothing. I don't see the problem. But the wife was coming from a family with like 2 children. They never invited her. So for her, 30 guests is like she was having a wedding, making a wedding every Shabbat. She couldn't take it anymore. So what happened? They started talking. They understood where they're coming from. And they found a compromise. Why? Because the Talmud tells us that the woman, in the Talmud, we call medaber, the talker. A woman is a talker. We say she took 9 times, right? Of the talk in the world. What does it mean? It doesn't mean that we're just love to talk. It means that the only way you can communicate is when you speak to the other person. The Lubavitcher Rebbe was saying that you need to spend 20 minutes every day talking to your husband. 20 minutes every day. Whatever happens. And don't talk just about the kids. Talk about anything else. Go on a walk. Talk about the leaves. I don't know. Talk about the weather. Talk about the stock market. Talk about something that interests him. Find the subject that interests him. I remember this woman, she was really upset because her husband wanted her to go to he was doing trade shows and he wanted her to come to the trade show. And she didn't like it. She didn't want to go. And he started taking his secretary to the talk show. Yeah, you know the end of the story. Whatever, it didn't end up well. And at the end, she realized she never made the effort of just connecting, just making it interesting. Is it interesting your life? Because the guy had no one to talk to about what he was doing. Sometimes I know my husband talks to me of things at work. It's not the most interesting subject for me, but yes. And honestly, sometimes it becomes interesting because I can give him good ideas and then it becomes really interesting to me. But at the beginning, it's like someone is going to come and talk to me about soccer. Okay, it's nice. I like soccer only when it's like the Mondial, the end, like the last, 2 match. But if you talk to me about who's going, which Real Madrid took that player, and okay, whatever, it doesn't interest me. But if that's the only subject the person in front of me is interested with, then I'll make an effort, I'll go research it, whatever. Because you were saying what are we talking about 20 minutes? Find something to speak about. Find something common. You know how many times I go to restaurants and I sit down and I look at people around, couples, everyone is on their phone. Try next time you go to a restaurant. Watch the tables around you. Everyone is on their phone. It's so hard to put the phone down. It's very difficult for anyone to just put it down and not touch it. But when you talk to your husband, put it down. That's something you have to do. Some people, they have a special box with a timer. This is maybe extreme, but that's another idea. A timer, and they put the phone down for 15 minutes. They talk to each other. They don't touch the phone. 15 minutes. It's hard because we have, when you have the phone, our brain, the neuropath is that we need the phone all the time. Look, people forget their kids in the car, but they don't forget their phone.
Oh my God.
Mamash. They said that now one of the things, you put your phone in the back seat and you won't forget your kid. Especially in the summer.
Remember the story from last time?
That you were telling me.
Yeah.
Exactly. That person forgot the kid in the back seat of the car. She was telling us a crazy story. But that's about it. Will you forget your phone? You'll remember very fast that you don't have your phone. But the kid, not sure. Why? Because we have the phone on the hand all the time. And when we speak to the husband, we cannot give him full attention. He's like that, we're like that. No one can really advance. So that's one of the things you want in Shalom Bayis. It's make rules, because rules are good. Imagine you play Monopoly, right? But there's no rules. Everyone is going to fight with each other. It's going to be like a huge fight. No one is going to be like, oh, you're driving in the street. There's no like stop sign. There's no like red light. We're all going to like, Chas v'Shalom, crash into the other. Rules are necessary. Why? Because they get us closer. People make a mistake of thinking that if you put too many rules and boundaries, then we're going to drift apart. Not at all. But you know where we learned the lesson from? The Kruvim. In the Kodesh HaKodeshim, there was the Aron HaKodesh, the Ark, right? And the Kruvim were the two angels. You know how the Torah describes them? They describe them as two entities. One was female and the other one was masculine. So a male and a female. And the Torah said that when they looked at each other, the Shekhinah, the divine presence, Hashem, was resting in the middle, between them. And we learned from that husband and wife, if they want Shalom Bayis, if they want the Shekhinah, they need to look at each other. Because one represents the male energy, one represents the female energy. And of course, some women have more male energy and some men have more female energy. But that's a general idea that works. It's true. If you don't turn towards each other, how would you look at the facial expression? How would you see what annoys the person in front of you? How would you see what he likes? Put your phone down and look at each other. That's what the Kruvim teaches us. And mistakes are welcome. Mistakes are okay. The parasha of this week, it's all about what? Pesach Sheni. Pesach Sheni is people, they couldn't offer the sacrifice. We gave them a second chance. We give them a second chance. It's okay, you messed up. So what? There's a new day. Tomorrow you start over again. It's never too late. You can always, even at any age, any stage in your relationship, unless there is abuse and mental issues and you need a professional, that's a different story. But for normal relationship with normal, let's say, fights and issues, everything can be dealt with. Everything can be worked. So make sure we go back to that idea of talking, asking the other person, where are you coming from? Why does it bother you? Listening. How do you know you're listening? When the other person is talking, you're not mentally preparing the answer. Pay attention. When you talk to people and they're saying something in your head, you're already answering to them. For children, for anyone. And that's very hard to have a conversation. Because you don't listen to them. You listen to your answer. You're like preparing already. Why is he saying he's not wrong? You're not listening to what he's saying. You know how many couples, they have problems? And when they speak to someone, they find a solution. What was magical? It's that the person just want to be heard. You know, I remember Alea Shalom, my great-grandmother, she spoke Moroccan, she spoke Arabic. And I did not understand Arabic. And she was so sad because she had no one to speak to, right? So I started to sit next to her and I would just listen to her. I was pretending and I was like, no. She was the happiest person. I would give 1 hour a week. I would go visit her, sit next to her, let her talk. I remember one time I was like, oh, that's great. And she was like, wow. She got upset at me. I don't know, until today, I don't know what she said. But it was not the right reaction. I was like pretending too much, but that's the idea. Maybe stop pretending and then it becomes natural to you. You pay attention to what the person is saying. Don't answer back in your head. Listen. And you know what else works very good? Repeat. Repeat what they said. You know how many times I was certain my husband said something and then I repeated it and he was like, I didn't say that. And I was like, okay, so what did you say? So I had to listen to it again with an open mind and then I heard him really. And the truth is at the end I got my way because he felt heard. So then he was, open to listen to me. And then we got through it. It just was a question of being heard. Sometimes make the people look at them. Put your phone down. Lock your eyes. Listen to what they're saying without preparing an answer. And then repeat what they're saying. Make sure that you understood. That validates the person. People need to be validated. That's the most important. Also, sometimes we feel that the person in front of us, that the husband knows what we're about to say. But they don't. Like not long ago. I must have said that at one of my other classes. It happened not long ago. My kids were sick. Okay, I had 2 kids sick at home. I barely slept that night. I was dying. You know, like when you want to sleep and then the second one cries with fever and then you have to wake up and you go back to sleep and then another one. It was the morning. I just wanted to cry. But one of my kids, Baruch Hashem, was healthy. So I was like, I'm taking him to school. At least, you know, I don't have him at home. So I got ready to go to school. And as I get ready to go to school, I got really upset. Because I was about to wake up my baby, who was sick, who didn't sleep all night, to have everyone in the car, like in the car seats and to take everyone to school. I'm not going to leave my baby alone. So I go downstairs. I see my husband who was about to go to Minyan. And I'm like super upset now, right? And I'm like, I don't get it. Why don't you watch the baby? Why do I have to do everything? Why do I have to wake a baby up? Why do I have to put the baby in the car? Why do I? And I'm like starting going like, you know, when you're tired, like, I don't even know what I'm saying. And I started getting so upset at him. And then he looks at me and says, wait a second, you never asked me. I was like, oops. I never asked him.
You can propose.
Yeah, but okay, no, because it's a guy. Not every man can propose all the time, trust me. I have one of my sisters, she loves birthdays. In my family, we love birthdays, right? We do like a big thing when it's a birthday. She married into a family, her husband, they don't do anything for birthday. It's happy birthday. You want to go out tonight? It's like, just nothing special. So I remember the first years of her marriage, they were about to fight, like they were about to divorce. Every birthday she was like so like hurt, you know, like he doesn't do anything. And he was like, what's the problem? I said happy birthday. What's the issue? It took time until she finally got it out and explained it to him. And then he understood. And Baruch Hashem, now every birthday she gets like a nice thing. But she had to talk about it. It's like, we cannot always expect them to propose or offer. They don't even think about it. You know what? I'll tell you in my case, but I don't know about everyone here. Superwoman. We have the syndrome of superwoman. We want to do it all. And we do it all, right? It's like if I go, for example, on a trip, I cook every meal. Like my husband doesn't have to do anything. I cook, I freeze, I put everything. And once I have another sister, it's the opposite. Her husband actually cooks. And she was like, why do you need to do all that? You know? And me, I didn't even ask my husband, do you want me to do it? I just do it. So sometimes you also have to see what you get the other person used to. You cannot get upset if all the time you do. So it's used that you do it. If you don't want, then say it. You know what I mean? Maybe some husband will automatically offer, but others will not. Maybe in other, areas, they will not, think about it, and others will. It depends. Everyone is different. But what I'm saying is that say things. There's no shame in saying what you want. You have to speak. Use your words, make yourself heard. And that we see, it's so interesting. When you see Adam and Chava, and you see, like, if you read Bereshit, you see that they go to the field and they speak. We don't know what they say to each other. We don't have all the, like, discourse, but they communicate. And if you see, there's no divorce because they talk to each other. They have the tools. The tools is communication. Take your time, speak, but do it the right way. Another idea that was beautiful is that I don't know how long I have. I don't want to be too long. Tell me.
I think like 10 minutes.
Okay. You guys tell me. Don't. I'm like, she knows me. I'm like, really relaxed. Is that to remember that when there's a problem, you want to approach it and think about solutions. Sometimes we're so focused on the problem that we don't even see the solution. We only see the problem. And that's something that we have to change. For example, one of my children is autistic. And when he was like young, he didn't speak. Okay, it took me like 3-4 years to get him to even say a few words and sentences. And Baruch Hashem, now he doesn't stop talking. Sometimes I'm like, shh, please. But he wouldn't speak until he was 3-4 years old. And, at first you can be like stuck and you can like cry all day and say like, he's not talking. And then one day you're like, okay, what do I do about it, right? Speech therapy. I do this, I do that. And then you start focusing about solution, not the problem. When you're stuck on the problem in a marriage, you cannot move on. And sometimes, pay attention, we are stuck on the problem. Sometimes it feels familiar to be the victim. In the sense that we're upset and we want to justify why we're upset. While we could very easily find a solution. But we cannot get there because it feels good to be upset at that moment. It's something that has to do with our feelings, with us. It just feels familiar, it feels good. So we don't want to like move things along. Pay attention next time you fight. How it starts most of the fights. Let's say a husband says something, we answer something, it explodes, he answers something back, we're even more upset, what did he say? And then he goes, now stop like the chain. He says something, pause for a minute. What were you about to do that gets you into that cycle? What are you about to do? Pause, stop, change the cycle. For example, the same child that was autistic, he used to have like a lot of horrible behaviors, okay? And Baruch Hashem, every year there's new behaviors, the other ones like disappear, new one come. One of the things, he would go to the garbage, like you know the garbage bins? He would go to the garbage bins, get naked, go inside. You can imagine how disgusted it was. I was like going crazy. I had to run after him, take him out of the garbage, rinse him before he comes home, rinse the garbage bin. I spent like many years, I wanted just like weeks, I wanted just to shoot myself just because of that. And one day I had a therapist come to my house and she said, you have to stop. I said, what do you mean stop? She said, stop the cycle. I said, what am I doing? He said, every time he runs to the garbage, you react. You go, you react, you run after him, you take him out, you make a big deal out of it. Don't pay attention. Ignore it. Don't react. I'm like, are you crazy? He's gonna go to the garbage. I said, so what? You'll wash him anyway. You wash him after, you'll wash him. So I had to really work on myself. For a few days, I didn't react. He ran, he went to the garbage. I didn't look at him. I didn't say anything. You know what? After a couple of days, he lost his appeal to the garbage bins and he stopped. And most of the behaviors usually stop like this. When you react too much to a situation, you keep the situation going. You know what they say in the Kabbalah? Women, we like fire. Men, they like water. What does it mean? There's a movie coming up from Disney. It's all about fire and water together. It's the same concept. The idea is that fire, we're usually passionate, right? We need everything. We need fast. We want passion. We want like fireworks. We want love. We want like good declarations. We want everything. We see on Instagram. We want the same. Like everything is like passionate. Men, they're happy going, Costco, like the Costco weddings. They go to the Costco. They come back. They do shopping. It's like what? Go to a wedding. What happens? You leave the wedding, right? What happens when you leave the wedding? You ask him, how was it? Usually most husbands, what do they say? Was that good? Well, it was good. Who was there? I don't know. The guys, I'm sure. Now ask the lady. Oh my God, it was amazing. I was sitting next to Shira and she bought a dress at Macy's, but the shoes were like from Nordstrom. And did you see her ring? And her mom yesterday watched the kids and she gave to dinner for her kid. She goes in over, like she knows everything in 10 minutes that she's had next to someone. We're connecting. We love to connect with fire. We love to connect. We love to react. We love to be there. Men, they're like, oh, whatever, they're happy, So how do you connect fire and water together? Very easy. You do it every day in your kitchen. You take a pot. Once you have fire and water together in a pot, the fire can warm up the water and the water doesn't extinguish the fire. But if you let the fire go too much, what's going to happen to the water? It evaporates. There's no more water. True? What happens in the opposite way? There's no more fire. What do we learn? All we need is tools for communicating. That's all you need in a marriage. To mix the water and the fire, you need the tools. We already have the mikveh, that here we have 2 weeks fire, 2 weeks water, 2 weeks fire, 2 weeks water. That helps a lot. But there's also tools on how you communicate, how you speak to the person. Remember, a big thing, you're not married to fix your husband. Don't believe that for a second.
Don't even try.
Don't even try. You know how many people, there's like kalot that are prepared for marriage and they come to the house and they like talk to me and they say, he does that, but it's okay, we're going to get married, he's going to change. He's not going to change. He's not. And the more you'll try to change him, the more he'll get upset. He's going to have resentment. He's going to get upset at you. You won't be able to change him. What you get is what you have. The only way we'll change if he realizes the problem and he decides to change on his own. But you like the cheerleader. Imagine you go to like a basketball game, right? You can be there and say go cheer, cheer to LeBron James and tell the Lakers, wow, woo, you're amazing. But you don't play for them, right? You can't play for them. You can just encourage them. Marriage is the same. You cannot play your husband's game. You can just be there to encourage him. And he has to let you in. If you force, it's not going to work. So if you work on your communication, be sure that actually it's going to help. Another thing is that do everything with care and empathy. And I know it seems obvious, but you know many people, they don't even realize when they speak, they're like abrasive, they're aggressive. The tone, right? The tone, you already want to, slap them. Some people, they're like that, right? They get on your nerves. They get under your skin. You can't stand it. Work the way you speak. My father was telling that story. This guy couldn't stand his wife. She was like the meanest wife on earth. He couldn't stand her. So he decided to go to a big Kabbalist. He lived in Israel. And he said, I'm going to pay you whatever you want. Just do a tefillah that she dies. I want her to die. He took like $30,000, put on the desk of the Kabbalist. So the Kabbalist, he said, you know what? I can pray for you. She can die by the end of the month. But you have to do one thing. You have to go home, and during the whole month, you have to speak to her, be nice to her. Just be nice for 1 month. That's all I'm asking you. Be nice for 1 month.
She's gonna die.
After 1 month, she's gonna die. So he came home, and the wife comes home, and he's like, my love, you know what, tonight I'm not going to my class. I'm going to stay home to help you with the kids. And do you want a massage on your feet? And she's like, what's going on with you? 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. After 4 or 5 days, she felt so loved and secure. She started opening up. She started also being super nice and super sweet to him. And that was like, after a month, it was perfect. After a month, the Kabbalist called him and he said, okay, today is the day. I just wanted to warn you, I'm going to do the last tefillah and she's going to drop dead today. He's like, no, don't kill her. She's too nice. Please stay alive. I want her to stay alive. Obviously, it's a mashal. But the idea is like this. Sometimes you're so focused on seeing the problem with your husband and who has the problem and who's wrong and what you said and you started. You don't see the solution. You sometimes just start to be the change. And it's okay. You know, it's just a question of ego. Put the ego aside. Be the change. The space. Remember these two kruvim, these two like angels that were on the Aron HaKodesh? It was the space between them. What's that space? It's a safe space that we create in our couple. By bringing love, by bringing empathy, by bringing communication. And remember that timing is important also. If you go and it's a wrong timing, no one is going to hear you. If someone is at the door and you want to talk about like what happened last night, it's not the moment. Wait, come, wait for like a meal or have some intimacy, something. Create a good atmosphere and then go ahead and talk about your problems. Because I can assure you, you won't have the same person in front of you. You will have a complete different person. So make sure that when you talk, you smile. The facial expression is so important. Smile. That's why we're saying these two queens, they were smiling to each other. That's when there was peace in the whole campment, in the whole Bnei Israel, in the whole tribes. And another thing, and I will end with that, is the forgiveness. To be able to really, really have a good marriage, you need to forgive and forget sometimes also. It depends, of course, I'm not talking about abuse or crazy stories. I'm talking about normal. How do you forgive? Remember that you also need forgiveness for yourself. We're not perfect. Sometimes we also get upset. Sometimes we also make mistakes. And we deserve to be forgiven because we're humans. We're not robots. And that's the difference between a man and a woman. And that's the difference between everything. If you feel that the relationship is just perfection and it has always to be perfect, you will not grow. And you know where we learn that? From the Aseret HaDiberot. What happened? Moshe comes down the mountain, right? And he has the beautiful Aseret HaDiberot. What does he see? He sees the people creating a Galazav, a golden calf. Basically, I'm coming here after Hashem saved you from Egypt, gave you everything, and you go and make idols? The luchot, he threw them and they broke in pieces. But what happened to the pieces? He saved everything. And when Hashem gave forgiveness later on at Yom Kippur, and they gave the new luchot abrit, right? They put them in the Aron HaKodesh in the ark with the broken pieces. And you can ask yourself that question. When you do something that is not good, that is not great, you're ashamed, right? You want to forget about it. Who wants to remember your teenager pictures? Who? I don't know. Me, I don't. My sister sent it on like the family chat. I was like, delete it. I don't want my husband to see that. I don't need. But it's that the idea, you do something bad, right? You don't want to remember it. You want to forget about it. You don't want someone to come and say, oh, I remember when I saw you at the store and you were screaming at your children. Like, no, thank you. I don't want you to remind me about the stuff, right? We want to be in a nice light always. So what happens? We don't want to remember that. And now what happens? We keep the pieces of the luchot. Meaning Hashem wants us to remember that the Jewish people did something wrong. What's the lesson here? The lesson is that if Moshe didn't break the luchot, we would have thought that to connect to Hashem, It always has to be holiness, perfection. Everything has to be exactly the way it's supposed to be, like in heaven. No. Hashem tells you, sometimes I want you to come to me with a broken heart. One of the Rebbeim said there is nothing more whole, more complete than a broken heart.
Rabbi Nachman.
Rabbi Nachman said it too. It's the same.
In Pesach, the matzah, the rabbi said this explication. Why we break matzah? We're supposed to make a bracha in a complete element, whole. When you see an apple, eat an apple complete, you want to do bracha of something better. But when we cut the matzah, it's because it's not better to something break, a heart break. I'm sorry, I'm trying to do.
No, but I think we all understand. It's beautiful. Yes. Yes, sometimes exactly. And what's the mean a broken heart? Sometimes we're upset. Sometimes we're depressed. Sometimes we're just sad. Sometimes we're upset with God. Sometimes we're going through a tough time in the life. All through these challenges, you can still connect to Hashem. And same thing in a marriage. Perfect marriages, you don't want them. You want a marriage that you keep working on it. You keep growing it, because I'm telling you, the biggest growth comes from these moments. Because you have to dig deep inside within you. And that's when you find strength. That's when you discover who you are. And when you know who you are, you can really connect to the person in front of you. If you don't know who you are, it's not a real connection. It's like, external love. It's not something good. And I'm just going to end with that last idea. I have so much, but I'm going to stop because I know I can go on for hours. I'm just going to start with that idea. Is that we all want ultimately to have children who are respectful. We all want to have children, right, who are kind. We all want to have children who are like giving, and we all want perfect children, right? But the children learn from us. You want to have good, like chinuch. There's a rabbi who was Rabbi Orlev. He used to say, you want to have good chinuch, you need to have Shalom Bayis, 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 Shalom Bayis. That's good chinuch. You want good education. You want your husband to speak to you respectfully when you're in front of the kids or when you're by yourself. Speak to each other respectfully. Pay attention to how you speak. Automatically, the person in front of you will also do the same thing. It's all about how we act. Sometimes we're so stuck about waiting for the other person to initiate that we forget that we have the power to change things. We have the power to initiate. And I've seen that over and over. We can have makeovers in our marriage at any stage of the marriage, at any moment. All we need is to start. It's like, once I was running a marathon. It was the only one I did with my daughter. She made me run a 5K. And I remember I was like, how am I going to do that? I'm like, I hate running. I'm so bad and lazy. How am I going to do that? And then I started putting one step, and I started running and walking and running and running and walking. By the time I didn't know it was an hour or something, I finished the marathon. I did a 5K. I was so proud of myself. What happened? I just started it. That's it. Sometimes we're so stuck. That's it. Take off the ego. Take a moment. Dwell, think with yourself. Take your time, discover yourself, discover your strength, meditate, do whatever it needs. Talk to someone who gives you good advice. How do you know it's good advice? Because you're not bitter after you're happy. Some people, you think they give you good advice. You go home and you want to just kill your husband, like, oh, he did that to you, and you're even more upset. Shalom Bayis is shalom. Shalom means bring completion. It comes from shalem. Meaning, remember, the person in front of you is a good deal. The person in front of you is eternal. And the person in front of you is the half of your neshama, of your soul. It just you come closer to him, he will, Be'ezrat Hashem, come closer to you, and everything else in between will, Be'ezrat Hashem, get better. So, that was for just today. Just shalom. Exactly, yes. That's how you bring Shekhinah into the couple, into the marriage. Hashem doesn't like to be with fights.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you.